Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bitter Rivals podcast, episode 84, powered by the Game Entertainment and Media. I am Avery, your host, along with co-host Gitano Gallo. Not a whole lot happening this week, so we're going to probably make this one a short and sweet one. There's only a couple games in Leafland and one full, complete game in Montreal. They are actually halfway through their second game since the last
pod.
Up
1-0, by the way.
Up 1-0. And you guys got a reverse retro win last night as well, did you not? Or yesterday?
The curse is broken. The curse is finally broken.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually talking about your reverse retros last night. We'll get to it a little bit more later, but there's nothing to reverse retro. There's no retro. It's all the same. Everything has never it's never changed.
Yeah, unless you want to go I remember our 100th anniversary, the 2009 it would have been. They did a bunch of special ones kind of throwing back, but
yeah, I remember those terrible striped ones.
Those were so bad that they were good. Those are a top tier awful jersey.
Yes. They were.
But yeah, we don't have anything to throw back to, so that's why these ones anyways from this year, they're more of the Expos throwback, but I still think they could have done that way better. But anyways, let's start with the Leafs, because we always start with Leafs.
Okay, let's start with the Leafs. So, in Leafland, obviously, not a lot going on. Austin Matthews is still hurt. There was a couple games against Columbus, back-to-back Friday, Saturday night. The first game was a 3-0 win. I was actually at a stag, so I was just kind of watching on my phone, because, what else does somebody do at a stag other than watch sports on their phone? So I didn't really get to see that much of the game, but from what I understand, from what I've seen on Twitter, from what my father told me, it was pretty much that's exactly how you want your team to play. One of their more complete games of the season. Obviously, there was a couple plays that Mitch Marner made in that game that were just absolutely insane, magical, as he so often is. But then the second game was a 4-3 loss to Columbus, which I don't know what it is, but we just love losing to bad teams. We should easily 100% be winning 2 games against Columbus. And we were winning last night. There was a couple of weird plays in the game last night. Their game-winning goal was, in my opinion, it was a high stick. The stick, did you see the goal? It was above the bar. And in my opinion, from the angle that you can see, his stick is also I understand that it's where the puck contacts the stick, but I believe that was also above the bar.
Yeah, the other thing you have to remember though, Abe, is that we don't see the angles at all that they all see, the refs and that and the video crews. So we don't have access to those angles. It didn't look great though, but I could see it going either way.
Yeah, I think the only reason that's a goal the only reason that eventually was counted as a goal is because it was called a goal on the ice, and I don't think that they wanted to overturn it. I think if it would have been called the other way on the ice, it probably would have ended up the other way too, because it was. I don't know how many better angles they had than they were showing on television. You're right, they do have better camera shots, more precise, but I think it was more of there's not enough to overturn it.
Yeah, so either whatever the call on the ice was, that's what it was going to be.
Exactly. It was kind of up in the air. During that game last night, though, it was wild because on Twitter it was unfolding that the Leafs were potentially in on Jakob Chychrun, and then they said that they're not in on Jakob Chychrun. But then you had Kyle Dubas up in the press box like this on his phone, you could tell something was about to happen or something was in the process. You know what I mean? It was kind of a hectic situation, and you could see it unfolding on live television.
Oh man, when was the last time a team's outright tweeted that a player's out due to trade reasons?
Yes, that is.
I've never seen that.
I saw a tweet last night. I forget who it was, so I apologize for not giving credit, but it was absolutely hilarious. It was the New York Islanders. You will never, ever understand the terms of our contracts that we signed. The Arizona Coyotes. Here's Jakob Chychrun's SIN number. He's sitting out tonight because he's getting traded. You know what I mean? It's wild how the contrast there. Anyway, I think that wherever he goes, it's going to be a massive pickup. Another thing that happened last night, not Leafs or Habs related, Erik Karlsson and Oilers, to the Oilers talks were heating up on Twitter, which I found interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, they're both kind of in shitty cap spots, so that's going to be a tough one for them to work out financially. Um,
Yeah.
and I also don't think a super offensive defenseman is what the Oilers need. Um, but it would be interesting, and I would actually really love to see him playing with McDavid and Draisaitl. I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, that would be definitely a treat to see. That power play would be very, very fun to watch. Um, so yeah, that's about where we're at. There's not, like I said, there's not a lot going on in Leafland this week. Matthews, like I said, is still hurt.
Yeah.
So we can't wait to have him back. Lots of trade chatter, but I don't think anything big is going to happen, at least until the deadline. Like, we're going to have a couple episodes of BRP here before anything really big happens trade-wise for the Leafs, I think. So that's about where we're at. It was the week after the All-Star break. Coming back to win a game 3-0 on your first game, that was, even if it was to Columbus, to get a shutout there was pretty nice, but that, man, last night sucked to watch. Just breakdowns. It was terrible. Terrible. Joseph Woll net, they had 40 shots on him. They had 4 shots in the first period, man, and they ended up with 36 over the next 2 periods. Like, how does that happen against Columbus? Like, that's just, it's unacceptable. Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got for Leafs rhetoric this week.
Yeah, well, so the Habs played their first game since the All-Star break last night. Big OT win. Reverse retro curse is broken, like we talked about. It was great. A couple of the younger guys still playing really, really well. Raphael Harvey-Pinard, the call-up from Laval. He now has, I think, 4 goals and 3 or 4 assists since his call-up, and he's playing on the top line with Suzuki and Anderson, which is something we don't often see, a call-up getting to play, because he's been a top line guy in Laval, but normally the call-up you end up on third or fourth line to fill in. But he's done really, really well taking that opportunity to kind of play in his role, like his more typical role, being offensive. So that's been good. Mike Matheson put away the OT winner last night. And then we are currently at the first intermission up 1-0 against the Oilers. And there's really not a lot to talk about. Yeah, it's just kind of the countdown to draft or the trade deadline, see who's going to get traded. It's going to be interesting. And I know we've picked up a couple of wins like recently, but I expect once the trade deadline passes and we ship out a whole bunch of players, the Habs do a lot more losing.
Yeah, which is exactly what they should be doing.
Exactly.
Right. So, yeah, we've talked about it a million times. You don't want to be that middle of the pack team because you're never good enough to get good players, but you're never bad enough to draft high and get good players, but you're never good enough to really do anything relevant in the league. So it's got to be done. Tanking is a necessity sometimes, right? And I think that's where the Habs are, and they understand that. And accepting that you're there and that you need to do that is a very hard thing to do. It's a hard pill to swallow. Truly.
Yes and no. I mean, Hughes and Gorton have done a perfect job of it so far. But they were also very clear, right when they got brought in, that I remember, I forget which one of them said it, but they're like, whatever you call it, a retool, a rebuild, a rejig, whatever term you want to use for it. Like, we're not competitive. We need to get competitive. It's going to take a couple of years, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. That's a huge part of it, is just that acceptance right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look what happens when you don't accept that, Vancouver.
Exactly, a decade of absolute mediocrity, just straight mediocrity. Since the Sedins really retired, it's been just pretty pathetic. Much. Yeah. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about a trade that did happen. Obviously, we talked last week about the Brock Besser deal at length with Stewart last week. Oh my God, Bo Horvat. Yes.
Well, yes, Besser's probably on his way out too, so.
Yes, he should be. Like we said, probably time to blow it up. But Vladimir Tarasenko from the St. Louis Blues to the New York Rangers. That's scary.
That's a pretty good trade. I like that a lot.
Well, a couple things that are interesting, I think, with that trade. First of all, the big thing for me is that Panarin, Zibanejad, Tarasenko line is one of the scariest top lines in hockey now. Like, it has to
That
be.
might be one of the nastiest lines I've ever seen.
Like, that
Like,
is
like in
disgusting.
a team, not counting international hockey, like league play. That's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing that is interesting from that, and after we talk about like the return and all of that, is that kind of takes a landing spot away from Patrick Kane, which
And he
I
is
find
not happy about that.
no, which I find very intriguing. Um, so here I'm trying to find the deal. What exactly did they net for Tarasenko, and was their salary retained?
All right. So, as per Frank Saravalli, to New York, Vladimir Tarasenko and Nico Mikola to St. Louis, a 2023 first, with a condition that it's they get the Blues will get the later of either New York's or Dallas's first round pick. Sammy Blaze, Hunter Skinner, and a 2024 fourth, and the Blues also retain 50% on Tarasenko.
Tarasenko's got 1 year left on his deal. Is he a UFA?
Give me 1 second.
Tarasenko cap friendly. Yes, this is the last year of his contract at 7.5.
Yeah. And I know he did say that he was definitely leaving St. Louis, considering what they had been offering him. Like, he wasn't staying. So I'm not sure what their cap situation was looking like, but if the Rangers can get him locked down for another year or two, even if it's just like a short-term deal, they'd stay nasty for a while.
Yeah, absolutely they would. So now that we've talked about that, let's talk about Patrick Kane, because that is extremely interesting to me. I don't really know what he's worth right now, I think, is the biggest issue. I don't think anybody really knows what he's worth right now,
No, and
because
he's still hurt too, is he not? Or
he
he's
said he's
been,
healthier now than he was last year.
because I know he was battling some injuries earlier in the season.
Yes, and when he's been on the ice, like, he hasn't been very good this year. But is that just like, he's still Patrick Kane? Is that just a product of being on the 2022-23 Chicago Blackhawks? Like, they're a very, very bad team. We understand.
Yeah,
that.
like that's you've traded out, an Alex DeBrincat, a Kirby Doc.
Yeah.
You didn't bring anything in to kind of fill those shoes. You're trying to rebuild, but you have just all these old players. I think they're a really bad team. I think that he has no help. He has no support in that team. And if he had gone to, say, a New York Rangers or, wherever he's going to end up, you would see maybe not a full return to the old Patrick Kane, but like a lot closer than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I have him pegged too. But the issue with him is, and especially with the injury problems that you were talking about earlier, is you don't know if you bring this guy in and then he can't play for the rest of the season. He gets hurt I just being a Leafs fan and seeing what's happened to us in the past with guys like Nick Foligno, and that's what would happen, is he's going to get brought in somewhere, even with salary retained, whatever, who cares? And then you've traded how many first round picks for a guy who's probably not even going to be able to play for you. And even if he is going to be able to play for you, he's having the worst year of his career. And you aren't 100% sure. Of course, we think that when you put him on a better team, he'll start producing at a higher rate. But we don't know that. Maybe Patrick Kane has regressed. And the other thing about Patrick Kane is he's going to want a contract. And I don't think, is he a pure rental? Or do you think he goes and signs somewhere when he gets traded there?
I mean, so he's 34 now. This last year of his deal at 10.5. I think it depends where he goes, whether he's a rental or not. But the other thing is, I said this last week when we were talking with Stewart's, that I don't think Patrick Kane's moving at the deadline. I think he's a draft or summer move. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere at the deadline.
So he's got 1 more year after this?
No, it's last year. I think he's done after this, and then he'll sign as a free agent somewhere else over the summer.
But then Chicago gets nothing for him. They got to do something.
I think they can try and move him, but I just don't think they're going to get offered the return that they want for him. And I think he also has a no. Is it a full no move? Yeah, he's got a full no move. So like he has to waive it to go somewhere. And
Yeah.
if he doesn't want to go to, obviously throw like Winnipeg under this, if he doesn't want to go to Winnipeg, like he's not fucking going, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So,
I got you. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm kind of leaning to what you're saying, especially since the New York thing didn't happen, and now that he's not going to be a New York Ranger, I think it's probably more of a summer draft kind of thing, maybe even a sign and trade that they can work out. I know you're not going to get a lot for a sign and trade because they're the only. Well, I guess he's not going to sign for 8 years anywhere. That would put him at what, 42. So no, it's not going to be a sign and trade. If they do nothing with him at this deadline, then that's it. Like they're not getting anything for him. He's going to go sign a 3-4 year contract somewhere, and that's it. And they totally lose out on retaining any form of asset for one of the best players of our generation. Like that's what Patrick Kane is, right? So yeah, it's spicy. Very, very spicy over in Chicago.
And also very, very on brand for the Blackhawks to just be a dumpster fire and get nothing in return for him. So
yeah. Very on brand. You're right. All right. Do we have anything else to talk about this week? We're only what do we have? Like 20 minutes in here. We should probably beef this up a little bit.
Yeah. So I do want to talk Jakob Chychrun a little more than we kind of briefly discussed at the beginning there.
Okay. So
where do you see him going? The fact that he's now being held out of the lineup for trade reasons means this trade is happening soon-ish. Yeah. What do you think?
I honestly would love to see him in the blue and white. I'd love to see him in a Leafs jersey. I don't know how likely that is. I don't know how you even make kind of the room for him cap-wise, but I think you probably are going to be sending a roster player the other way. I would think that would probably be like an Alex Kerfoot or something like that, along with a prospect and a first. I would imagine is what it would take to get Chychrun out of Arizona. Another place that I've heard and I find interesting is the Los Angeles Kings.
Yeah, they just kind of came up last night, as far as I saw, anyways.
Yes. And I think that's interesting because they're a team that's kind of fascinating. They're an old team, but they seem to still hold their own. I haven't looked at the standings recently, but as recently as just before the All-Star break, they were like second in their division. So
they are they're third in their division right now, behind the Oilers on whatever the tiebreak is. They both have 65 points.
So there you go. That's kind of unexpected, is it not?
Yeah, a little bit. Like they have good pieces kind of scattered throughout their roster, but it's not a solid roster all the way through, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. And it's I would be interested to see them pick up a guy like Chychrun and honestly keep it in the Western Conference if he's not going to be a Leaf. The last thing I need is for the Boston Bruins or something to pick him up, because we goddamn know that's what's going to happen. Like that's just, the Bruins are like that. They are just
they missed out on Horvat, so that now they will get Chychrun.
Yeah. Another interesting one is
Timo Meier. I was going to say, just quickly on Chychrun, he'll go to Boston, then sign a really team-friendly deal and stay in the division for fucking another 6-7 years.
Oh, yeah. That's generally how things work. Because why wouldn't they? But yes, as I was saying, another interesting one is Timo Meier. So, I'm not sure where he's going to go. Go ahead.
I'd say his price is even steeper, I think, than the Chychrun price, from what I've been hearing.
And I believe that's because he's an RFA at the end of the year. He's not. He's under team control at the end of the year. So wherever he gets traded to, he would also be under that team's control. So I think that's the interesting part with him.
And you think the Leafs are still going to be on him, or?
I don't think you can be in on Timo Meier. No, we can't. Don't even have the cap space for the Chychrun deal. You think we have the cap space for the Timo Meier deal? And especially with that RFA, you're going to be paying. Like, we're not signing him after this season because we can't afford it. So if you're paying it, like, other teams will be able to sign him though after this season. So what my thinking kind of goes to, we're not going to pick him up because we're going to be paying a non-rental price for a rental because we're not able to sign him. But teams are going to jack up that, like, bid that price up because he's under team control. He's got RFA status, not UFA status, right? So the price that makes his price high. So why would the Leafs pay extra for a guy that is, you know what I mean? Has that status, has that RFA status when we're not going to be able to sign him anyway? So that's why I think we'd be out on him.
I mean, you could also, you could try and flip him. If, let's just say hypothetically the Leafs picked him up at the deadline, flip him at the draft or something, right?
Yeah, and it always happens with the Leafs is people know that we're not able to sign him, so they're not going to pay much for him anyway, right?
Yeah.
And you're probably paying, let's call it a first just for that RFA status, not even the player. You're probably paying a first-round pick to have that guy under your control, and right, you're not going to retain that at the draft.
No.
So that's the situation with Timo Meier. Again, sorry everybody, there's not a lot to talk about this week. We've done our absolute best. Gitano, is there anything you would like to say? Get the Habs schedule up and
yeah, so I mean they are currently in first intermission right now, up 1-0 against the Oilers. Alex Belzile has his first career goal, which is great for him. We've got the Blackhawks in Montreal on Tuesday. We're at the Hurricanes on Thursday, and then Saturday we are in Toronto to play the Leafs.
So our only games this week are Wednesday hosting the Blackhawks and Saturday hosting you. So
score prediction and goal scores for the Leaf save
in that game?
Yep.
7-0, 3 from William Nylander, 2 from John Tavares, 1 from Pierre Engvall, 1 from Calle Jarnkrok.
4-3 Habs win. Kirby Dach gets 2, Josh Anderson gets 1, Arbor Xhekaj gets 1.
Want to know, just quickly, do you know, like, I did not realize how bad Josh Anderson was. Like, I thought he was a reasonable... Dude, Pierre Engvall has better numbers than him. Pierre Engvall. Like,
Pierre Engvall also plays on a way better team.
Pierre Engvall also, like, has played, like, 1,000 less minutes this season than Josh Anderson and still has better numbers than him. Josh Anderson's just bad.
He's all right.
And he makes way too much money.
He's all right. He's so a Leaf killer. He's a Leaf killer, and that's what's great about him.
Yeah, I guess that's why I thought he was good, is because he always scores against the Leafs. But
literally
he
always
be awful against everybody else. Like, he must be really, really bad against everybody else. I admittedly don't watch Josh Anderson play very often. It's usually against the Leafs when I do watch him play, but he must be terrible in the other 77 games a year. Like, terrible. Piss poor.
He's all right. I think, look, if he got to play on his line with fucking Caulfield and Suzuki, like, for a full season, it would be different. But obviously,
Pierre Engvall plays on a line with David Kampf and Calle Jarnkrok.
Yeah, but, like, there's points of the year where fucking Anderson basically didn't have, like, a third, because we were playing the 11 forward 7D, so we don't even have enough fucking bodies for him to be playing with someone, like, regularly. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's a superstar, but, like, he's not that bad.
He's pretty terrible.
He's all right.
Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you to the Game Entertainment and Media for hosting us. Check us out on all of our socials. We got Instagram, Twitter. I just made another Twitter. If you listen to last week's episodes, you would have heard me. It's at BRP Leafs. Give that a follow if you haven't already. I should probably start adding that to the graphics.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for listening this week. Hopefully we have a little bit more to talk about next week. We will, because there's at least Habs games Saturday night, so it'll be a little bit more theatrical next Sunday. But until then, thank you for listening, and ciao. Talk to you later.